The sun was barely peeking over the horizon, casting elongated shadows across the undulating African savanna. Mist hovered over the tall grasses, a thin veil that could hide both prey and predator alike. Imagine yourself walking among the ancestors of humans, creatures not yet fully upright, their faces bearing the raw curiosity and caution of a world that offered no certainties. 4.1 million years ago, survival was a daily negotiation with the elements, with hunger, and with dangers that lurked in every rustle of leaves. In this primeval world, the early hominins moved with a careful grace, scanning the landscape for both nourishment and threats. Their lives were intricately intertwined with the rhythms of nature. The climate shifted unpredictably. Sometimes a torrent of rain would rejuvenate the rivers and bring a temporary bounty of fruits, seeds, and small animals. Other times, the land hardened under relentless drought, and the search for water became a test of ingenuity and endurance. Here, a single misstep could mean starvation or a fatal encounter with a predator. But how did these early humans find sustenance in such a precarious existence? They were neither helpless nor passive. Observing the behaviors of other animals, testing different plant foods, and gradually understanding the cycles of growth and decay allowed them to exploit every edible resource. Roots dug from dry soil, nuts cracked with rudimentary stones, insects collected from tree bark. They were pioneers of experimentation, learning which foods sustained life and which were best avoided. Every meal was a small victory, a testament to adaptation. The danger was ever present. Lions, leopards, hyenas, and massive birds of prey prowled the same land, often as hungry as the hominins themselves. Survival depended on constant vigilance, the ability to read the subtle signs of a predator's approach, and an understanding of which terrains offered safety. Yet, it was not fear alone that guided them. Curiosity and intelligence sparked innovations in tool use and foraging techniques that would lay the foundation for future human ingenuity. Pause for a moment and picture this scene. A small group huddled near a riverbank, the scent of damp earth filling the air. They share the knowledge of which roots are edible, where water is safe to drink, and when the tall grasses might conceal danger. It is a delicate balance of risk and reward, a dance choreographed over countless generations. These early humans were shaping themselves in harmony with the land, learning lessons that would echo for millions of years. If you're intrigued by how they navigated this world, take a moment now to like this video and comment. What strategy would you use if you were facing the same challenges? The story of survival 4.1 million years ago is not just about the past. It's an invitation to imagine resilience, adaptation, and the relentless pursuit of life in the harshest conditions. The winds of change swept across the landscape, reshaping rivers, grasslands, and forests in unpredictable ways. 4.1 million years ago, climate was not a gentle guide, but a relentless force that dictated the survival of every living creature. Early hominins found themselves at the mercy of scorching heat, sudden droughts, and the dramatic oscillation between wet and dry seasons. In such a volatile environment, adaptation was not optional. It was the only path to life itself. Imagine standing in a sun-scorched plain, the heat radiating off the cracked earth, and knowing that water might be miles away. Resources were patchy, and the availability of food could shift from abundance to scarcity within days. Early humans had to read the signs of the land, the patterns of clouds, the migration of herbivores, and the subtle cues in plant growth. Every movement was a calculated decision. Choosing the wrong area to forage could mean an empty stomach, or worse, a deadly encounter with predators desperate for the same nourishment. The fluctuating climate forced early hominins to be flexible in their diet. One day they might feast on wild fruits and tender leaves. The next, They relied on roots, tubers, and insects dug from the parched soil. The ability to experiment and adjust to changing conditions was their most critical survival tool. Even the landscape itself offered lessons. The dried riverbeds might hide edible plants beneath the sand, while the shadows of trees indicated safe resting spots away from prowling carnivores. Environmental pressures also shaped social behaviors. Groups had to move strategically, often splitting into smaller units to cover more ground or consolidating to defend limited resources. Cooperation was not just helpful, it was necessary. Sharing knowledge about waterholes, edible plants, and predator movements became an unspoken rule of survival. The early hominins' intelligence was constantly tested, honed by the need to anticipate environmental shifts before they became crises. Through it all, life persisted. The harsh climate sculpted resilient bodies, sharp instincts, and a deep understanding of the natural world. Every day was a lesson in patience, observation, and ingenuity. These early humans were not passive victims of climate. They were pioneers learning to navigate a world in constant flux, laying the foundation for the remarkable adaptability that would define our species millions of years later. The forest edges and open savannas were both a banquet and a battlefield. For early hominins, the search for food was a journey through uncertainty, a test of ingenuity as much as endurance. Imagine moving through a landscape where every step could reveal a hidden predator or a patch of nourishing vegetation, a world where survival depended not just on strength, but on knowledge and adaptability. 4.1 million years ago, eating was not merely a biological need, it was a delicate strategy woven into every decision of the day. Dietary diversity became the cornerstone of survival. The early humans were opportunistic feeders, scavenging fallen fruits, cracking hard nuts with stones, and digging for roots and tubers buried beneath the soil. Even insects and grubs became essential protein sources. They learned to identify which plants were safe and which carried poisons, a skill honed through trial, observation, and intergenerational teaching. In a world without supermarkets or cultivated fields, food was everywhere and nowhere at once, available only to those who could read the subtle cues of the environment. Observing other animals provided crucial lessons. Watching primates peel fruits or termites emerging from mounds, early hominins recognized patterns that hinted at nutrition. Large herbivores, such as antelopes and early elephants, were not just competition. They were guides, leading humans to water sources, edible plants, or seasonal migration paths. By following these creatures, hominins expanded their knowledge of the terrain, creating a mental map of survival that included food availability, predator presence, and seasonal shifts. The act of eating also involved risk. Feeding in open areas could attract predators lurking nearby, while digging for roots in unfamiliar soils exposed the hominins to hidden dangers. Every meal was a calculated risk, balancing nourishment against the threat of attack. Food became not just fuel, but a test of perception, patience, and courage. It demanded flexibility, quick thinking, and the ability to adapt to scarcity without panic. In this challenging environment, survival depended on experimentation and shared knowledge. Individuals who discovered edible plants or effective foraging techniques passed these insights to their group, ensuring that success became collective. Food, in essence, was a teacher, revealing the rules of the landscape, the cycles of life, and the intelligence required to thrive. Every bite consumed was a step forward in the ongoing story of human resilience, innovation, and adaptation. The tall grasses whispered secrets of unseen danger. 4.1 million years ago, every shadow could conceal a predator, and every sound demanded vigilance. Lions padded silently through the plains, leopards crouched beneath trees, and hyenas scavenged in the twilight, all alert to the movements of early hominins who themselves were learning to survive by observation and cunning. Life was a delicate dance between hunter and hunted, with the hominins' survival depending on foresight, speed, and the keenest senses. Predators were not merely threats, they shaped behavior, movement, and even social structures. Groups of early humans learned to coordinate, using calls, gestures, and alert signals to warn each other of danger. The very layout of their habitat was influenced by these fears. Dense thickets offered concealment, rivers could provide a temporary barrier, and elevated ridges allowed for a sweeping view of approaching threats. Knowledge became a shield. Understanding predator habits was as crucial as knowing which fruits were safe to eat. Daily routines were dictated by risk. Midday might be reserved for the safety of shaded areas, while foraging happened in the cooler, lower-risk hours of dawn and dusk. Even the act of gathering food carried the weight of strategy. Approach too boldly, and one might draw the attention of a lurking lion. Linger too long, and a scavenger could steal the hard-earned meal. Survival demanded vigilance, patience, and a growing intelligence that learned to anticipate danger before it arrived. Yet, danger was not the only teacher. Early humans observed predators to learn, sometimes even exploiting them indirectly. Knowing the routes of carnivores, they could locate food left behind, such as remnants of prey. They adapted their strategies, balancing aggression with caution, curiosity with prudence. Predators shaped the early hominins, honing their instincts, sharpening their awareness, and forcing them to innovate tools and tactics that would slowly elevate them above mere vulnerability. Imagine watching this precarious world unfold. Silent stares between hunter and hunted, quick retreats into safer terrain, and a constant mental calculus of life and death. What would you do if you were living under such relentless pressure? Share your thoughts in the comments below. How would you navigate a world where every shadow could mean danger, yet every day demanded sustenance? The story of early humans is not just about fear, it is a testament to ingenuity, cooperation, and the relentless pursuit of life in the face of omnipresent threats. The first stones were more than just fragments of rock. They were the tools that bridged instinct and intellect. 4.1 million years ago, early hominins began experimenting with objects in their environment, shaping them to unlock new possibilities for survival. Imagine a small group beside a river, selecting the right-sized rock, testing its edges, and striking it carefully against another to reveal a sharp surface. Each spark of insight was a step toward mastery over the challenges of the landscape. These rudimentary tools transformed access to food. Hard nuts that once required immense strength could now be cracked with simple percussion. Roots and tubers buried in the soil became reachable with sticks and digging implements. Even scavenged meat could be separated from bone more efficiently, allowing early humans to exploit resources that had been out of reach. The tools were extensions of their hands, amplifying both capability and ingenuity in a world that demanded constant adaptation. The process of creating and using tools also encouraged observation and problem-solving. Early hominins watched how stones fractured, how different forces affected materials, and which techniques yielded the most reliable results. Every experiment refined skill, and every success increased confidence. Intelligence was being exercised as much through action as through thought, embedding knowledge in hands as much as in memory. Tools were more than survival implements. They were a form of communication, too. A sharp-edged rock or a well-chosen stick told a story. It demonstrated knowledge, experience, and understanding of the environment. Others in the group could learn from observation, imitating techniques and improving upon them. Innovation became a social phenomenon, a collective evolution of ideas that transcended the individual. In the shifting mosaic of savanna, forest, and riverbank, these simple tools marked a turning point. They allowed early humans to stretch the boundaries of what was possible, granting access to resources previously denied, mitigating some of the dangers posed by predators, and strengthening their ability to thrive despite a capricious climate. Every carefully struck stone, every measured swing of a branch, was a quiet revolution, a testament to the ingenuity that would shape the future of humanity. In the precarious world of 4.1 million years ago, survival was rarely a solo endeavor. Early hominins discovered quickly that strength multiplied in numbers, that knowledge shared was life preserved. Imagine a small group navigating the undulating savanna. One scans the horizon for predators, another digs for roots, while a third carries knowledge of where water pools after the last rain. Cooperation was not merely advantageous, it was essential. Social bonds shaped everything from foraging to defense. Individuals learned to communicate subtly through gestures, calls, and shared routines, transmitting crucial information about food locations, predator movements, and seasonal changes. Even the simplest cooperation could mean the difference between life and death. A group that could coordinate would survive longer, gather more resources, and mitigate risks that an isolated individual could not face alone. The transmission of knowledge created a collective intelligence. Observing each other, early humans learned faster than solitary trial and error would allow. Young hominins watched the elders, mimicked techniques for cracking nuts or digging tubers, and slowly built a shared understanding of the landscape and its hidden opportunities. Social learning became a survival strategy, embedding lessons in behavior and memory rather than leaving them to chance. Moreover, community provided emotional and psychological support. The presence of others offered reassurance in a world dominated by predators and scarcity, reinforcing bonds that strengthened group resilience. Even simple acts, such as sharing food or guiding each other to water, became vital acts of survival and trust. Social cohesion was not only practical, it was a foundation of adaptation. In this way, early humans were not just surviving, they were forming a network of shared experience, a proto-society forged by necessity and ingenuity. Every cooperative act, every lesson passed between individuals, expanded their collective capacity to endure the harsh realities of their environment. Their success was rooted not merely in physical strength or intelligence, but in the subtle, profound power of connection. The first steps toward the complex societies that would emerge millions of years later. Water was life, and shelter was safety, yet both were often scarce. 4.1 million years ago, the early hominins understood this with every step they took across the vast sun-baked plains. Rivers carved through the land like veins, but the water was not always safe or easy to find. Pools dried unpredictably, and predators often lingered near the few sources that remained. Every journey to water was a calculated risk, requiring observation, patience, and courage. Shelter, too, shaped survival strategies. Trees with sprawling branches offered shade from the relentless sun, while rocky outcrops and shallow caves provided protection from both weather and predators. Selecting the right location meant balancing safety with accessibility. Too close to a predator's path could be fatal. Too far from resources could mean dehydration or hunger. The landscape was a maze of potential refuge, and the early hominins learned to navigate it with keen awareness. Finding water and shelter demanded cooperation and ingenuity. Groups would often move together, taking turns scouting and signaling danger. Knowledge of seasonal changes, of which streams ran longer or which hollows stayed cool, became vital. Such information, quietly shared among members, ensured the survival of the collective. It was a subtle understanding of the land, one born from careful observation over generations. Imagine a scene at dusk. The group approaches a shimmering pool. alert for the slightest sound, while the tallest trees sway gently overhead. They know the risk is real, yet the reward is immediate. Here, water quenches thirst, and the surrounding rocks and trees offer protection. In this moment, survival is not just instinct, it is strategy, foresight, and unity. Now take a moment to imagine yourself in this ancient landscape. How would you decide where to drink or where to rest? Share your thoughts in the comments below. These choices were life-defining for early humans, highlighting the delicate interplay between courage, intelligence, and cooperation that shaped their enduring resilience. The land itself seemed to breathe with seasonal rhythm, guiding the movements of all who lived upon it. 4.1 million years ago, early hominins had to understand these cycles with precision. Rainfalls would swell rivers and fill pools, then vanish to leave parched plains behind. The availability of edible plants and migrating herbivores shifted with these patterns, demanding a fluid response. Survival was not about staying in one place. It was about following the life that moved across the landscape. Migration became a silent teacher of adaptability. Groups learned to track the herds of antelope and elephants, to anticipate where fruits and tubers would ripen next, and to seek out areas where water remained plentiful. These journeys were fraught with challenges. Rivers needed to be crossed, predators lurked along the paths, and unfamiliar terrains tested the hominins' ingenuity. Every step was measured, guided by an intimate understanding of the environment and a constant negotiation with risk and reward. Seasonal changes also dictated food strategies. When certain plants withered, roots and tubers became essential. When insect populations surged, they provided protein-rich sustenance. Observing animal behavior offered clues. Where the herds grazed, water could be found. Where predators hunted, caution was paramount. Knowledge accumulated over generations, creating an intricate map of survival that transcended individual experience. Adaptation to these cycles was not purely instinctive. It required planning, memory, and social cooperation. Groups that could anticipate environmental shifts, share knowledge about safe routes, and coordinate movement had higher survival rates. Early humans were learning the delicate balance between exploration and caution, freedom and safety, movement and settlement. In essence, migration was more than travel. It was an education, a strategy, and a testament to the flexibility that allowed our ancestors to thrive amid uncertainty. The ebb and flow of the seasons, the dance of prey and predator, and the availability of sustenance all sculpted behaviors, diets, and group dynamics. By following the food and water that nature provided, early hominins were not merely surviving. They were mastering the art of life in a world that demanded constant adaptation, foresight, and ingenuity. The echoes of survival from 4.1 million years ago carry lessons that stretch across time. Early hominins, navigating the unpredictability of climate, predators, and scarce resources, reveal insights into adaptability and resilience that remain relevant today. Observing their strategies offers more than curiosity. It provides a window into the foundations of human problem-solving, innovation, and cooperation. Their survival hinged on flexibility. When one food source disappeared, another was found. When threats emerged, they adjusted routes, formed protective groups, or improvised tools. This constant adaptation was a lesson in resilience. Progress was not linear, but cumulative, built from observation, experimentation, and the ability to respond creatively to challenges. Modern humans, despite living in vastly different conditions, can recognize the echoes of these same traits in our capacity to innovate, collaborate, and endure adversity. Social learning emerges as another enduring lesson. Knowledge was not confined to the individual, but shared and refined across the group. Observing elders, mimicking successful strategies, and passing discoveries forward ensured survival across generations. This interplay between individual curiosity and collective memory created a dynamic system of learning, one that mirrors modern approaches to education, mentorship, and teamwork. Perhaps most profoundly, the Hominins story emphasizes courage and presence in the moment. Each decision, where to forage, when to move, how to evade predators, required awareness and boldness tempered by caution. Life was lived actively, fully engaging with the environment and its challenges. Modern humans, often insulated from direct survival pressures, can still draw inspiration from this ancient mindset to approach life's uncertainties with awareness, adaptability, and a readiness to respond creatively. By reflecting on these ancient strategies, we see that survival was not only about endurance, but about understanding, flexibility, and shared wisdom. Early humans remind us that resilience is cultivated through observation, cooperation, and the courage to act within uncertainty. Their lives were an unspoken guide, showing how intelligence, adaptability, and social bonds can transform the raw forces of nature into a canvas for human innovation and perseverance. The horizon burned with the last light of day, casting golden fire across the ancient plains. 4.1 million years ago, as the world cooled into dusk, the early hominins moved quietly toward safety. Their silhouettes merged with the tall grasses, their eyes reflecting the fading sun. A reminder that even in a world of danger and scarcity, life endured. Every step, every sound, every decision had been shaped by the forces of nature, yet within them burned a spark of something greater. The will to survive, to adapt, to learn. Each challenge had sculpted them. Droughts tested their endurance, predators sharpened their awareness, and scarcity awakened their creativity. Through these hardships, they discovered that intelligence was not born from comfort, but from necessity. A cracked nut, a carved stone, a shared meal. These small victories were the foundations of something monumental. They were building the first chapters of what would become the human story. Together, they survived. Cooperation turned weakness into strength, communication transformed confusion into strategy, and shared knowledge became the thread that bound them across generations. These early humans were not merely reacting to their world, they were beginning to shape it. They watched, learned, and innovated, carrying the essence of what it means to be human, to face chaos with courage, and to find meaning even in struggle. Theirs was not a life of ease, but of extraordinary resilience. Every dawn brought uncertainty, yet they met it with determination. Their hands, roughened by labor, shaped the tools that would redefine survival. Their voices, once instinctive calls, became the roots of language and connection. And their choices, to stay together, to move forward, to endure, echo through time, whispering that survival is not just about strength, but about imagination and unity. Now, as we look back across millions of years, we can still feel their legacy alive within us. The same adaptability, the same curiosity, the same fire that refused to fade. Their struggle was not the end of a chapter, but the beginning of our own. If this journey through the dawn of humanity moved you, share your thoughts in the comments. How do you think you would have survived in their place? And if you'd like to keep exploring the untold stories of our ancient past, don't forget to subscribe. There's so much more hidden in the layers of time, waiting to be uncovered, together.